Hi, this is Linda West. I almost forgot my last name. How do you like that? This is Linda West with Living Live. And today I am really, really pleased to introduce you guys to Jodeen Bergstrom. Now, she does estate planning, and we're going to talk about estate planning. Why estate planning is something that really everybody should, if nothing else, at least be knowledgeable about. Okay, we're not saying you got to run and go, prepare your estate today. But the thing is about education, being knowledgeable about what it is, why you need it, or maybe somebody else that you know needs it. If you know anybody who is anybody that needs anybody, who, go ahead and share this with them, because we really want to get this show out there to share with people like why they might need to prepare an estate, prepare their estate for their impending death. The bottom line is we are all going to go. We just don't know when. So what if it were tomorrow and you weren't prepared? Well, we're going to talk about that. Like what happens when a family isn't prepared? I mean, when a person isn't prepared, so that when their family has to deal with everything, what do they deal with? I really want to talk about that. When my dad died, fortunately we were ready, 100% ready for that. When my mom died, we were all ready for that as well. And so I want to thank my dad, for going out there and making sure that he made sure that we were ready. So who is this show for? Okay, if you're in a family or know a family who's lost a parent at a young age and suffered the consequences for not having a will or enough life insurance, then this show is definitely for you. But I'm going to introduce Jodeen, and she's going to tell us also other people that this show would be for. Like that's just one area, but this show is definitely for a lot of other people as well. So Jodeen, welcome to the show, and I want you to let everybody know exactly what you do, and then also who else can benefit from watching this show today.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Linda, for having me on here. And it's not just so much just about preparing for death, because we think that that's the ultimate, what we need it for. The other side of that too is if we become incognizant, like if you have a stroke, Alzheimer's, dementia, there are other issues where having that estate plan in place before those situations happen that are crucial. Because if you do not have a power of attorney or a guardian in place, all of your hard work of building up that estate plan can be lost in a second, because then the court systems come involved. And if you have greedy siblings or children, or even brothers and sisters. I mean, I was just speaking to a lady, and the aunt came in and rewrote the whole will when he was on the deathbed. And I mean, stole millions and millions of dollars. And I mean, they've been in the court system for 7 years trying to fight all this. I mean, it's, once you get into it, you really don't realize all, the consequences that can happen if you're not on top of your game or knowledgeable of what can happen. So it's not, like I said, just preparing for death. There's those emergency situations that we all need to be prepared for. And I know it's not fun. I can attest to, it's
right.
Not an easy task, but it is something that's, if you want to be responsible. I mean, think of what your father did. I mean, think of how peaceful that was, knowing that you didn't have to take care of all those details. I mean, that is a legacy all in itself right there. So.
Yeah, and it really was, because I was the one who dealt with all the paperwork and everything. So, excuse me, my dogs are going crazy right now. But, I'm the one who dealt with all the paperwork. Do what?
You were the executor of the will?
Yeah. Well, not really. We didn't have it that way. I don't know how else to, how he did it. I don't know the terms that he used or whatever, because I never saw the will. I don't know if he actually had a will. I don't remember exactly how he did, but whatever he did, he made sure that when he passed, that everything was very easy. And he had everything laid out for me, like all the steps, do this, contact these people, here's my account numbers, here's everything, because he wanted to make sure that my mom didn't have to deal with anything, because, she was still alive and she was capable, but he wanted her to just not have to worry about anything. So it was very, very thoughtful, what he did. So like, even though people who have been following me, they know the things that I talk about my childhood. I grew up in an extremely abusive, alcoholic household. So even though my dad was, not the best, when I was growing up, he was very thoughtful towards the end of his life and making sure that it was easy for us as the kids, the grandkids, and my mom. And so he did make it a simple process. But I want to address something, because you said, some people have strokes and we don't know when it's going to happen. Now, I know somebody who had a stroke at age 26. 26. And, fortunately, he wasn't incapacitated, but it does happen. So the bottom line is we really, really don't know when this stuff is going to happen. So when we're of sound mind and able to take care of ourselves, that's the time to do this, not waiting for, another time. And so let's go ahead and, get into this. Again, share this, please, on your page. Just share so we can get this information out there. So I know I was talking to you a little bit, and I think one of the number one things that people talk about is, oh, I got plenty of time to take care of this, right? Is that like pretty much at the top of the line? So let's address that. Go ahead and talk about that. And what does that mean? And is there really enough time to take care of it?
That's a very, rebuttal that most people have. They're like, oh, I don't, 26 years old, I've got my life ahead of me. Well, did your friend really have her life ahead of her? Because, that stroke happens in an instant and we never know. And, the other analogy I always use is, think of Las Vegas. The people that went to that concert thinking that they were, going for an enjoyable evening, and in a split second, their legacy changed and the families picked up the pieces. And so, it's crucial. We really never know. We're not guaranteed. There's two things we are guaranteed, and that's that we're going to have to pay taxes and we're going to die. Now, you may not want to pay your taxes when you're alive, but when you die, they will get those tax dollars. That's always a little bit of an argument. But, we really do not know. And so it is crucial that you take those time, the time now. And, I hate to use the word responsible, but and it's not just so much responsibility. It's just the love. Like you said, even though you didn't have a good childhood, you have great memories of your father leaving that in a constructive, process. And it made it easier on you. It made it easier on your mother and the grandchildren. And that's a wonderful legacy. So even though, like you said in the beginning, it wasn't good, but at the end, that's what you're remembering. And that's the awesome thing about this.
That's a great point. I had never even thought of that aspect of it, that because of the way my dad, ended things, that he made it so that it left a lasting positive memory of him. And I got to tell you, for decades, I don't have very many good memories of him, but that is definitely one of them. And so it's kind of interesting how towards the end is when my mind started to make a shift to see him on a different light. And it's, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the way it was. It's just the way it was. That's how I processed everything myself. But for him to be able to do that and have me say, you know what, he was a good man. I just never saw it while I was growing up. I didn't see those goods because the bads outweighed the goods to me when I was young. So, definitely being able to pass that on to your family members, and like you say, responsible, whether it's the responsible thing or the whatever word we use, it's really something that's important to think about our families and, what we're going to leave behind, for the mess we're going to leave for them to clean up. Right.
Well, when somebody passes, there's over 101 decisions that have to be made. And people don't realize that. And so, that in itself, if it's a stress situation, unexpected death, and you've got all the emotions that you're trying to deal with, and then you've got the responsibility of making all these decisions. And if you haven't spoken about it, if you haven't been transparent about it, then you're making these decisions, questioning, well, is this what they wanted or what, that it makes it very difficult. So just being thoughtful in that respect and understanding that, it's tough enough losing somebody, and then you put in that emotional stress of making those decisions, then it just compounds it. So
yeah. And also, what's your thought on, because money is a weird energy in the first place when we're alive, but when money is involved with family, it causes a lot of rifts. It can cause a lot of rifts between people. So what's your thought on that, as far as making sure that you can make it so that when the person passes, there's not all this weird crap going on?
Well, I can speak from my personal experience, and this is where the word greed comes up. I had 4 siblings. There were 6 of us, and I had 4 siblings that, when it came to reality that mom and dad were getting old, and my mom fell and broke her hip, and some health issues came up, the greed came out, and it was crazy, and the jealousy. And, I spent a lot of time in courtrooms trying to defend what my parents wanted. And the reality is even though you have things documented, if you don't have every T crossed and every I dotted, if there's a little loophole and you got to go into the court system, you are going to get screwed. There's no way around that. And that's what happened to my parents. They didn't end up living out their golden years because it was so stressful. And the other side of that, there were 6 of us. Guess how many interpretations there were of mom and dad's wishes?
7.
Well, actually, try about 12 because you have in-laws in there that feel they have entitlement. And that was the hardest part. I mean, when it comes to your parents, they're your blood. And when you get the in-laws in there, not all situations are ugly, but it can get ugly. And if you haven't addressed things, and part of the thing, my mom and dad actually tried to have some tough love. They did meet with the lawyers, and I had 4 siblings that tried to disbar a lawyer because they didn't like what he was saying, which was what my parents were. So I mean, that's part of why I've put this together, because I don't want other families to experience this. It can be done in a loving and compassionate way, but if you're going to do, let's do it the right way. Let's make sure you do have the guardian, because that was my parents' downside. They were each other's guardian, but then when dad got dementia, and then, as things went along, at 91 years old, my mom, couldn't remember the date right away, but she eventually remembered it. But, that's dementia. So they can phone it in as she's incompetent. And so then she was actually assigned by the court system. At 91 years old, my mom's sitting on the stand arguing that she's competent and she just wants her wishes, to be let out. And it was sad, but that's why I don't want you guys to do. I want you to be able to, avoid all this, and, so we can help you out as far as really what the details are, because that's the other thing. Everything's very vague. I mean, if you go to the lawyer, they're going to tell you, yeah, you need this, this, and this. Well, if you haven't checked with your accountant to find out how you need to set up everything, do you need an LLC? What are you, if you have a lot of assets, how do you set that up? And then if you go to the investment part of it for your life insurance and stuff, they're going to try to sell you the most of that. But if you don't have a team working together and pulling that in, you only have part of the picture, and you end up with some loopholes. So that's our goal, is to get it all brought under one umbrella, give you the education so that you can make an educated decision, and then make a plan that's unique for your situation, because it's no cookie cutter. Your assets are totally different from my assets. And so there's not a cookie cutter out there. So we really try to get you enough education that you can dive in there. And then when you do go to the lawyers and the accountants and everybody, you have the right questions. Because nowadays, it's $800 to ask a lawyer a question.
Right.
So
better keep that to half a question. Well, that kind of actually segues to the next thing, which is, my family already knows what I want. So is that really true? I mean,
it's interesting. I never thought. Yeah, I've never thought that would be, something that people would say, but people are in denial. They're like, oh, I'll let my family take care of it. But, like I said, there were 6 of us. And so there were 6 interpretations of it. So, you really need to find a guardian that you can trust. And, a lot of times I recommend not a family member, because family has too much emotion in there. You need to find a friend. And, I've talked to a lot of people, and that's been their job. And one of my good friends, she was a guardian for a little old lady, and she said it was really hard because sometimes she had to step in and say, no, we talked about it, and this is what she really wanted. And but at the same time, she got her wishes carried out, because there wasn't the family relations and everything. And there, she was a bystander. She didn't have any emotional. I mean, she had emotional attachment, but it wasn't at the level of a daughter or niece or a family member. So, and the other side of that too is one thing I want to note. If you think, oh, I don't own enough of stuff, that's when you really need to be in alignment of making sure you've got everything in place. Because if you don't own enough, then actually you are leaving a huge headache for your family. Right now, I know in North Dakota, the average cost for a funeral is $12,000. Nationwide, it is $15,000. Yes, to be buried. That's the cost that for when you die. you need to have that set aside.
Wow.
Because if you do not, those expenses don't go away. So your heirs have to pay for that. And it doesn't matter, Medicaid, Medicare, people, oh, I'm poor enough or whatever. No, those are expenses that have to be covered. And there's also some things, some states don't require you to be embalmed, but that can be a $2,000 expense. So there's things that you can do to cut your costs down that nobody talks about. So that's where we bring in a lot of the education of saying, hey, you know what, this is what I want, or I want to be cremated. And, you may be saying that half-heartedly at the kitchen table and really mean it, but your family's like, oh no, she didn't want that. But, that's really what you wanted. So it's really important to make sure that you are, stating these things and that you're looking at the real picture of it all.
Yeah, it's interesting because the way I saw things, it's weird for me because I'm a very emotional person, yet when it's time to, check in and be realistic and just like very focused on the issue at hand. I mean, I was a legal secretary for 20 years. So, I worked in this field of, like boom, 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 boom,
Right.
And so I'm able to like turn off the emotion and then be, the way I need to be. So it was interesting in our situation because when my dad passed, my mom, everything went to my mom. And so my mom, we found out that she didn't have much time left either after my dad. And so something in me just clicked and said, you know what, Mom, we're going to buy the house from you. So my husband and I bought the house. We were living with my mom. She wanted us to take care of her last 3 years. We didn't know it was 3 years, but it ended up being 3 years. And so I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to buy the house from you. And then you distribute all the money to the kids, however you want to do it while you're alive. Distribute as much as you want to the grandkids, just do what you want. It's your money. And so we ended up doing that. And she, just did what she wanted with the money while she was alive. So we didn't have a house when it came time. And then she put me on every single one of her bank accounts. She made me the beneficiary of everything so that when it came time, there was none of this probate stuff. There wasn't any issues. Like everything was so simple. It was cut and dry. I just went into the bank, took the money out, distributed it to my siblings. And, I'm a very fair person. So there was never an issue in my mind. Like there was never a thought of me taking advantage and taking more than I deserved, taking more than everybody else. And so I just split everything evenly and literally we were done in like a week. It was crazy. Yeah. So there are ways to get around it, but I know not everybody does that.
Right. That's awesome. And I'm very proud of your family. First of all, I want to express my condolence to your parents. I know that that's a hard thing. I just lost my parents in the last 18 months. They died three months apart from each other. And
wow.
That's a hard thing. But the thing is I appreciate that your family did that because that's the right way of doing it. Get out of the probate. I mean, we're in probate. We've been in probate now since last May. That's when my dad passed away. And there's a buffet downstairs that's in my possession that my mom gave me that may hold it all up. And if that's the case, all the land will actually be sold because there's just enough money to cover the expenses right now with the court costs and everything. And so if my brother decides to do this, then we all lose the land. And, it's just the crazy things like that just, and even, my brother got emergency guardianship over my mom at one point and went through all of her, her stuff. And I can't, 1,000% say that the wedding ring is missing from my mom. It's gone. Nobody knows where it's at, but it was in her possession before he had the guardianship. And after the guardianship that he had, it was gone. So you can make your own analogy. And, I don't have to live with that. I know, like you, I full-heartedly was very honest and upfront on everything and anything. And so I know, in God's eyes or whatever, spirit is, I did everything right. But going through this, sometimes you question, like, am I the crazy one? When my sister is kind of on my same side, she said, no, or I feel like I'm crazy. And I'm like, wow, I thought it was me. So it's sad. It really is sad. But, I'm glad that you're that's a great role model. And I hope that you pass that on to your generation. I hope that you're taking care of what you guys need to take care of. So that, and think of the joy that your mom got giving that money away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really was a blessing for everybody because it was very interesting because everybody in the family was having financial struggles. And so it was perfect timing. You know, everybody got their percentage, the grandkids all got money, and it was great. And the grandkids they were all adults. So it wasn't like they were 2 and 3 years old, you know, they actually needed the money for whatever they were going through at the time. So it was perfect timing for everybody. And my mom got to be part of, you know, taking care of them while she was alive. And that's what I think was so beautiful, is that my mom was able to participate in it while she was here instead of not knowing what happened when she's gone. There was nothing to fight. There was not a dime to fight over because it was all taken care of while she was alive. You know, it was.
That is awesome. You know, and the funny thing is, for my story, is everybody said I had power of influence. But the thing is I invested in my parents. I made a relationship with them, and they were very jealous of that. But I called, you know, if I only called my mom once a day, it's like I hadn't talked to her. I mean, my phone bill back then, when we had to actually pay for each call,
Right. In the old days.
Yeah. You know, was a $200 to $300 bill because you know, how do I make this sauce, Mom? What do I do with this? You know, do I cut up the pork chops? You know, I mean, I just was involved in my mom's life the whole time. And we had 5 daughters, and she knew what was going on all the time, even though we didn't live, we were states away. But that investment made a relationship. And, you know, when I came home, I was surprised because they were in their 80s when I came back to North Dakota and kind of helped them transition. I was shocked that they didn't have it in writing. I really was, because my dad had a situation where his father's will went missing. And so my dad went into debt, $150,000, buying the farmland from my grandfather, which he always had the understanding that he was going to get it because he'd stayed on the farm and worked, and you know, he was the only son, and it was just my dad's aunt. So there were 2 of them. And so that, you know, was a hard lesson to learn at 50 years old. So at 80 years old, when they didn't have their will, I was really shocked. But, you know, that when I came home, I said, sell everything. We're emancipated. We don't need anything. We don't have, you know, we've all moved away, you know, sell everything now and give the money away. Spend it, give it to Goodwill. I don't care. You know? So if I had such power of influence, why did this whole thing take place? You know?
Right.
But, you know, I mean, I really wish that they would have done some things different, but I'm not responsible for them. I encouraged them. I went to classes and I was learning and gathering all this information. In fact, when you have farmland, there's a couple of programs that because the whole thing with farmland is so many of these generations have to buy it over again. Who wins from that? Our government, because it's inheritance taxes. It's, you know, all these money and repayment and the interest and everything. And so, you know, I mean, generations after generations, how long does this land have to be bought, you know? And so that was why I went to these courses, to learn how we could do it and transition and make it, you know, a lot easier and less expensive. I mean, bottom line. But, you know, my mom and dad didn't set it up the way that they should have. But that's okay. They owned it. You know, that's not my, you know, I presented the information, and if they didn't want to do it, then, you know, that's okay. It's theirs. They own it.
Right, exactly. And I love that. And first I want to say hi to, we got Mary here. Good afternoon, Mary and Avril. Thank you guys so much for attending the show. I'd love it if people would share in the comments, like any kind of stories that they've had related to, you know, probate, no probate, you know, wills, trusts and stuff like that, because we all have a story. There's a story there somewhere for all of us. And I want to thank you for sharing your stories, but we're just about out of time. So I want to share how people can get in touch with you. You can go to Facebook, go to Jodeen.Bergstrom, JODEEN.BERGSTROM. And then also, if you comment with the words family first down below in the comments, then I'll connect you with Jodeen. I'm going to set up a messenger bot so that when you comment with the words family first, that the messenger bot will send the information to you and you can connect with Jodeen after the show. But if you're looking to prepare an estate, or like, why don't you tell them like what you can do for them?
The big thing is I have an online educational course. And the big thing is I want to educate you so that you can make the right decisions when you go to all the different entities in your state. Because the thing is with estate planning, each state has a different law. And if you own land in 2 different states, then you need to have 2 different lawyers. because they do not correlate, and you have to make sure that you're noted everything in the state which the land is in, or property or house, whatever it is. And a lot of people don't understand that. So there's a lot of education in there, and we want to make sure that you have the right information so that when you go to make these important decisions, then you can sit down and you can make a complete plan. It's a 4-week course. Now, we jump on lives, we bring in lawyers, we bring in accountants, and we bring in also the investors so that you can ask them one-on-one questions if you have anything. And if you're not able to jump on the lives, they're pre-recorded, the course is all put together, and you can go in there and do it at your own pace. You know, we recommend a 4 to 6 week. I mean, it's hard because you got to gather all your information. We put it into a love box for you so that you gathered everything and you know where all of your important documentation is. And then if you get off course or you don't have the time, it's lifetime access. So you can get in there and you can do it at any time. So it's not like you have to, be right on it. 4 weeks is a hard time to, set aside. But you can do it at your own pace as well. But we try to encourage you to, go through the course and be done with it, and then you can move on. So.
Awesome. I love that. So again, if you type family first in the comments below, I'll connect you with Jodeen, and then she'll be able to introduce you to the course that she has. So just one last question before we leave. He says, I see Avril posted this question. Do you now have a will? You yourself, Jodeen? Actually,
when I was 26 years old, I developed a cancerous tumor in my parotid gland. So right here. So I've had a will since I was 26 years old. And now with the probate and getting land that from my parents, I'm going to have to update that. And that's one thing too. We encourage you every 3 years to look at your information, because there's life changes. There's divorce, there's births, there's deaths, there's all kinds of different things that go on. And then just having your medical directive for your health care, because now if you're traveling, your husband or your wife isn't guaranteed that she's going to get the information from the doctors if an accident happens, if you don't have the right paperwork. There's so much details now and so much paperwork, and if you don't know about this, it can make it hard. We're in North Dakota, there's a lot of snowbirds, and I always encourage a lot of them to put that paperwork in their glove box so that if something happens when they get down to Arizona for the winter time, they know where that paperwork's at, and they can take it in and present it to the medical care if they have to go in down there and it's taken care of. So there's a lot of details, and yes, I do have a will, and I have life insurance, and I have everything in place because I have 5 daughters and grandbabies. So I don't want them to go through what I've went through. So, but that's a great question. And the other thing too, is I was going to say, I've got I've got a group because I'm kind of redoing the membership site. So I'm actually going to offer you guys a special deal. Is that okay?
What is it? Let's hear it.
Well, the course normally runs $997, but for anybody that does that family first, I'm going to do a half price. So it's of $500. And I do that because I want to reach more people, and I want to make sure that people are getting this information. So if anybody that comes through the bot and puts family first, they're going to get 50% off. And then also, Linda, I'll make sure that you're taken care of too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, do my estate planning. There we go. Well, this is fantastic. Thank you so much. That was a surprise for me, guys. We hadn't talked about that. So that's awesome. Getting a 50% discount just for watching this show, putting family first in the comments below. Again, if you want to connect with Jodeen, go to on Facebook, Jodeen.Bergstrom, and then type family first in the comments below, and I will connect you with Jodeen. Jodeen, thanks so much for being here. My husband's like, dinner's ready. Are you coming? So I've family first, right? I gotta go.
Exactly.
Gotta go.
Well,
So,
Tom, I don't want to delay you anymore, but I appreciate the time, and I'm excited. If anybody has any questions, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to answer whatever I can. And like I said, do that family first, and let's get you going on the right track, and get you going with your estate planning.
Awesome. Well, you guys have a great day, and thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And I see we have Avril and Mary who have both commented family first, and I'll get that information to you guys. Thank you so much, and have a good night. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.